everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Ghost Furnace. I am Bond, and I'm here as always, again, with my cohort, Nick Pennsylvania. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing well. It's longer than it should have been because there was that day recently where we had a lot of weird audio issues, and we are both going to hope desperately, sincerely, earnestly that that's not the case today. And I listened to last week's episode. I
Mm-hmm.
was sad I couldn't be there. But I was at a pie festival, so how sad could I really
Can't be
be?
too upset for poor old Nick.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, you've had Carlson Greaves.
yep. Hmm.
You've had him on twice now, and neither time was I able to attend. And I sincerely hope that he doesn't interpret that as me having anything with it against him, because that is not the case.
Yeah, no, next time for sure, because we'll certainly have him back again. And it was a really fun conversation. For those of you who haven't heard it yet, please go back and listen because I think, I mean, really, anytime we have a guest on, like, please listen to those episodes because they're all of them are good. We've never had one guest that I didn't think was super interesting and prolific.
Well,
Um,
and if you think we're boring, then you should definitely check in when we have a guest because they could probably. But that's episode 128, the legendary and historic Johannes Kelpius.
mhm.
And again, a figure I wasn't familiar with, but kind of a story. I feel like a lot of the new world, and I've got air
Mhm.
quotes going up. A lot of early English colonial America is seeded by these utopianists
Mhm.
and these sectarians, and Johannes Kelpius is certainly among them, but a particularly interesting story among them because I know again we've mentioned this before. The town that we grew up around was originally, for
Mhm.
lack of a better term, it was really just a religious cult
Right.
that moved
Right.
there, and from the
Yeah.
same region of
Hmm.
what's now Germany as well.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and it's a fascinating conversation, and I've been telling Tim for over a year now. It feels like that, like there is so much with Johannes Kelpius, and I particularly think that Tim's take on how he fits into history and some of the research that he was able to both like uncover, but also just kind of like refocus. I think tells us a lot about our history here in the state, but like American history in general,
yes.
and like how folklore works. Like it's interesting because like that was a conversation that I like we knew we were going to talk about the historic versus the legendary. Like that was something we had kind of uh, said we wanted to focus on because we think it's interesting. Um, but I went into that conversation really thinking like, oh, we need to get people to not need to get people. It sounds like an agenda, but like I really want people to think about how people in folklore get like co-opted by sometimes very well-meaning people into like folk legends,
Yes.
and it's usually so far removed from who they are and everything, and how that's how we need to be very careful of that. And partway through the conversation, I was like, yeah, we of course we need to be careful about it, but the legendary version of these people is still super valuable and interesting, even if it's not factually or historically correct.
Well, and that's interesting because it's not dissimilar from his position on Shoemaker in some ways,
Correct. Yeah.
which again really made me reconsider because I know I've always brought Shoemaker up with a pretty large caveat
Right.
about, cold cloth creations and whatnot.
Hmm.
So, I'll have to go back and listen to when he first came on to discuss Henry Shoemaker, again, our Pennsylvania's first state folklorist. But
Hmm.
I do remember his argument held some water with me and
Oh,
did
for
make me
sure. Yeah.
soften some of my positions on Shoemaker himself. But did you get any? I remember you said you had heard some feedback about that
Yeah.
conversation.
Well, yeah, I had a few people reach out to me. One, just that they, I mean, I had probably about half a dozen people the next day reach out. basically saying how much they enjoyed the conversation, and a few people who expressed like pleasant surprise with the level of detail that Tim was able to kind of go into, and just kind of like people, I think, just be like, wow, there's a lot going on here. And again, we just kind of scratched the surface with some of that stuff. Like the book, again, I can't say it enough. The book American Aurora. If you're listening to this podcast, go buy it. It is so good.
I will get in line myself because I need to get it. And, speaking of the detail, one of the things we were discussing recently in private is just one of the things that comes up time and time again, and you just earlier today brought it
Hmm.
up, is that sometimes we get to dead ends, and sometimes it's
Yeah,
because there very well may have been other documents and articles that
totally.
have just become lost to history.
Hmm.
And so to be able to find so much detail,
Right. Through so many
it's
different
just about a
places.
figure that we're going back to the 18th century.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and he said one of the things that really drove that home is at this time Philadelphia
Hmm.
is a city of I think it was under 3,000 people, which
Right.
still made it, a major concern at that time in,
Right.
the colonial
But
states.
just
But
from a yeah, but just from a perspective standpoint, it really is.
I can't think that there would be, I mean, maybe Montreal. What
Hmm.
else would have been that big
That
at
big.
that time?
Right.
Because
Right.
I think if you think about it, Montreal, I think was founded, I'm going to double check. I'm going to say right now, 1658.
I was going to say 1650s. Yeah. I
But I'm going to
but that's without
confirm
checking.
that one,
That's
but
without
that's
checking.
so now I'm checking.
Uh,
I am checking
yeah.
1642.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
So not that bad.
we were
So
yeah, we were in the ballpark. I don't feel bad about
17th
that.
century. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So anyway, the bottom line was it's really amazing how much
Hmm.
detail was able to be pulled out, but then we also have to wonder how much more full would Johannes Calpius portrait be if so many documents that certainly existed
Right.
haven't been lost to history, and who knows what could be unearthed, but as the years go by.
Right. No, that's a really good point. And one of the things that really drives that home is like his whole idea of the threefold wilderness state and everything. Again, we only have that because he wanted to clarify with a friend and sent a follow-up letter.
Yeah,
Like that is one, like I said, that's just such a human thing that I think a lot of us can relate to. That kind of reminds you, like, yes, this is a mythical figure in some senses, but also this is just like a guy who had friends and was trying to get through life and like
right.
I don't know, it kind of grounds it in a nice way. But as far as other feedback that I got, I had multiple people reach out very quickly after asking if we were going to have Tim back on to talk about that Ephrata poltergeist case that he kind of alluded to that he has a talk on in September, and I believe we have the dates and times and locations for that in the notes from last episode. And we'll certainly have Tim back on sometime in the future to discuss that. What sounds like a fascinating case.
And it's gonna have to take wild horses to keep me away because otherwise this
Right.
guy's really gonna think like I just don't like him for some reason or other.
Well, we had work, we had a pie festival, so if we keep everything
Yeah.
else, in
Well, and
line,
I want to say because I haven't been on since, well, we both were
we
together,
tried
but it
2 weeks
was
ago.
thwarted. I
Hmm.
have to come back to episode 126, which was the Seneca drums thing.
Oh, yes,
Um,
yes.
because we talked about, oh, I should have talked to my dad. So I
Hmm.
talked to my dad a bit. Because he did his graduate studies at Syracuse,
Hmm.
real
Real
close, and he
close,
was
yeah.
familiar with the lakes and everything,
Hmm.
but he was not familiar. So we were chatting a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't know how much further he's looked into it, but we got a couple of really funny comments. I wanted to say, and I know he's listening, well, will be listening. Our friend Chris reached out, and this was specific to the scene on the boat where you said there was like an excursion boat that saw this giant lake monster and they
Right.
tried to hook it
Yeah.
in, but it fell
Yeah.
into the deepest
Yeah.
part of the
I
lake.
forgot about that. Yeah.
They rammed it with
Yeah.
the boat. If you haven't
Yeah.
listened, please listen because it's wonderfully ridiculous.
Yeah.
Our friend Chris wrote, I love how hard everybody went immediately Something strange on a boat? Hang on, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to ram it with gay abandon. But he did say it reminds me of how little we know about the lakes and ocean and how hard it is to explore and learn about.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
at nearly a kilometer deep, that's stupidly hard to explore. And he's right.
He is. Yeah, he's not
He
wrong
is right. But it
on both
is,
accounts. Correct.
yes, it is really
Yeah.
funny. Like, oh my gosh, what is, I have no idea. Let's ram it with the boat.
Yeah, like that was option number one.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, as I
Different
said
times.
then, these boats are not really, this is not like a jet ski.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
I mean, if you've ever tried catching a fish with your hands, now imagine
Yeah.
trying to steer a boat
Both
into it.
towards and do it at the same time. Yeah, it's
Um,
bananas.
my friend Jared, who is
Hmm.
often in the woods, he was chatting with me. He said, I hadn't listened in a while, and I had my own experience in that area of
Hmm.
the lake, the Seneca Drums experience. I'm listening to it now, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Jared, tell me
Doesn't shock me.
what you got to tell me your experience. Maybe we'll have you on. He's like, no, 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 I'll save you the suspense. And he wrote, it was a bunch of Amish guys hunting bears. They were pounding on buckets and pans. We did a lot of speculation about the noise for about an hour before I walked out and realized what was going on. So yeah, there was a bear
That's
hunt, and I guess to drive the bears out,
yeah.
some of the Amish guys were banging.
That's so
I
funny.
I didn't know that that was how they drove bears. I've never
Well,
been bear hunting myself. I have no interest, but I immediately responded like, well, that's a strange hunting technique. I thought they were trying to
yeah.
lure bears to them,
You'd think, yeah.
but
No,
making
I don't.
kitchen noises of
Yeah,
pan.
we'll have to ask some of our game warden friends. I don't think you're allowed to actually do that, but I'm sure there was. I'm
Well,
sure it was
and this is in
happening.
New York,
It was
so
in New
who
York,
knows?
right? Yeah, this is yeah. But that's funny. That doesn't shock me.
No.
Jared's such a good dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And
That's a good story.
I feel bad I haven't seen him in person for a while, but yeah, so I have a short story for you.
Hmm.
I was still leery about tech after being thwarted.
After yeah, well
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. So I didn't want to go too hard today.
Hmm.
I mean, not so hard that we, wreck fish with boats with gay abandon, but
Right, right.
so I've been just in my personal life reading a lot of this David Hinton stuff, and he translates Chinese poetry and everything, and
Okay.
it kind of these two different topics kind of converge because I said, well, I've heard little things like Chinese architecture is influenced by the traditional ethnic beliefs in ghosts and whatnot,
Hmm.
and that some ghosts can only move in a straight line. Have you heard this sort of stuff
I've
before?
heard. I wasn't sure if that was specifically from like China. I've heard stuff like that before, and I know like just through there's a podcast called Stories with Sapphire. It's with a investigator and author and podcaster named Sapphire Sandalo. She mainly does like Indonesian folklore from that area, from like South Asia. There's some wild, wild, wild stories. So I've not heard that particularly, but I'm very interested.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of like the Hungry Ghost Festival.
No, actually, I haven't.
Okay.
This is
Well,
the Hungry Ghost Festival. That sounds awesome. Okay, I'm in.
I would say in our specific culture, how many types
Hmm.
of ghosts would you say there are?
If you ask the lay person,
I would say if I'm asking you,
yeah, no, okay. So generally speaking, you have poltergeist activity, which is often
yes.
considered a ghost. You have the spirits of dead people, apparently. Uh, then you have
Well, and there we have to divide that into two categories. We
right,
have to divide the intelligent
the intelligent into
versus like the
the
replay.
residual, yeah.
Right.
And that's also not really even taking into account, spirit travel, like people who are bilocating or astral projecting. Those are often kind of lumped into ghosts because it shows up as a ghostly figure.
But
Um,
it's not what we
it's
would call a
yes, I would
departed
say yeah,
person.
I would say generally speaking, those are like the big ones. Poltergeist, dead person, and then out of that you have uh, someone who is intelligent or something that is residual. Those are like the main buckets for most people, I would say.
Okay. Well, I need to do some more reading into it, but basically, I think the closest analogy
Hmm.
that I can draw to the Hungry Ghost Festival is like Dia de los Muertos. I think
Okay.
most North Americans,
Celebrating, yeah. It's a
especially people, Chicano people,
hmm
and obviously Mexican people are very familiar with that. Where
hmm
it's a big part. I mean, in Dia de los Muertos, it's definitely a Catholic, but
hmm
it's also like an ancestor worship thing,
Right,
right?
which is very like worldwide. We
Right.
see ancestor worship in very very lots of different forms. Yeah.
And from what I understand, the Hungry Ghost Festival, that's essentially what it is. There are
Okay.
offerings laid out. There are lanterns towards the end of the festival to help
Hmm.
guide them. One of the things I think is particularly interesting, though, what else would you do? Like, as having been raised Catholic, we light candles, right?
Boy, do we love candles.
Love them candles.
Candles and
Love
statues. Yeah.
incense as well.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
they also burn incense. That's
Hmm.
pretty common practice the world
Okay.
over. And I credit the spice trade in part with bringing
Hmm.
that idea. I don't know from where it originates, but
hmm
again, pretty widespread
Right.
practice.
Yeah, you see it popping up in different places in different forms depending on the local cultures and
And not
everything.
to sound
Yeah.
morbid, but I think that's in part because, incense typically smells pretty good to most of us,
Right.
and
Hmm.
you can find a stink that smells good to you.
Yeah.
And again, not to be morbid, but I think it's because there are death smells
Right.
that usually
Yeah.
aren't that great.
Right.
Um, so they have that, but one of the really interesting things is they have paper,
hmm
incense paper that they burn,
Oh, okay.
and more to the point, and the English word for it is hell money.
Hell money.
Well,
Okay,
but
interesting.
I want to go on. Apparently, the a more accurate translation would
Yeah.
be like underworld money,
Okay.
or something along those lines. But
Yeah.
the general term in English is hell money, and basically it's just for it is it looks like money, it looks like currency,
hmm
but they are this incense paper, and it's to burn, and it's so that you're giving an offering of money to help for the
Oh,
monetary
okay.
benefit of the
Yeah.
dead, because apparently death and taxes
Oh
follow
God,
you.
man, if capitalism
Death
is if we
tax.
have to deal with that still, I'm gonna be real
Well, here's a
full
really funny
salty about
thing.
it.
Here's a really
So funny
funny
though.
thing. And we're getting just right before the Maoist, the Cultural
Hmm
Revolution and whatnot. In the 30s or 40s,
Hell money.
there was a well, there was a depression of sorts, right? There was
hmm
inflation and all that jazz. And the common denominations of the incense money
hmm
that was burned grew because they're like, well, great grandpa is going to need more because boy, the prices of
Oh my
eggs are just going through the
God.
roof. So it parallels, and I
That's
think that's
crazy.
both kind of funny and endearing.
Right. It's
Yeah.
times are tough. Man, I've never heard of this. Cannot wait to look into this.
Yeah, you'll have to look into
Yeah.
it. But the other thing is that again, I've
That
only
sounds so
scratched the
cool.
surface, but there are so many
Hmm
different types
Yeah.
of ghosts, and it's kind of like the balance that we associate with so
hmm
much Taoist belief and whatnot.
Oh, so this is Taoist. Okay.
Well, it's no, it's
No, it's
not.
not. Oh,
It's
it's
not.
not.
But
Okay.
here's the thing.
It's more cultural than
No.
religious. No? Okay.
Hold up. Here's the thing. The more I learn about this, because obviously I read a lot
Yeah.
about Taoism
hmm
and Confucianism. They're different.
Right, right.
We are much more programmed to take a one way or the other way.
hmm
All right, like the
Right.
Abrahamics, we've got divisions on some ideas that are going to push you to Judaism, to
hmm
Islam, and the various sects
hmm
of Christianity and Islam and all that jive.
hmm
Okay, they're much more take a bit of this, take a bit of that.
Yeah, a little more
The
chaotic.
bow.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, in a good way.
Right, right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
I think Alan Watts said something that like the Confucian is much more of like the empirical realist, the
Mm-hmm.
rationalist, whereas the Taoist is much more of it's not that it is chaos, it's just is
Mm-hmm.
that there is the way, and
Mm-hmm.
anytime you go against the way, and the Taoist is always looking for the shortcut, and that it
Mm-hmm.
really isn't that hard, but that turns people off. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
so the balance aspect that I talk of though is that depending on your character,
Mm-hmm.
you can become a ghost that, there's all these different types. I know the translations I have before me are
Mm-hmm.
probably half accurate, and
Right, right.
hungry ghosts in particular
Mm-hmm.
were apparently people that were arrogant, and they can
Oh,
come
okay.
back as like a fog or vapors, other different types depending again. Like if you were a hateful person in life, you can apparently come back as an insect or be a ghost that can take on the form of an insect, kind of like we talk about
Really?
vampires taking
Okay.
on other things.
So it's because like, yeah, you're okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So there's all these different types. There are yeah, there's
So,
all these different types. One of those ones are the ones with the hair.
mm-hmm.
Some will have Uh, oh. So some have hair like iron needles. Some have hair
I don't like that at all.
that's no, and they don't
Mm.
either. Some have hair that is really like oily and smells really bad.
Yikes.
And some, and this is awful, have oozing sores that they have to feast upon. Well, feast is probably a bad word. I think they'd be reluctantly diving in. I see your face.
I don't like that at all.
No, right.
Sounds awful.
And I haven't learned what those people did in life to
To
be
to
that way.
to to get that. Yeah.
Yeah, what is that term for people that hypochondriac? I want to think,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to
Ugh.
say, but I don't know. I just
That's
think that that would
interesting.
be deserving. And I think this little story I have for you is one of those types, and you'll hear
Okay.
why. But
Okay.
I think you'll see parallels to
Mm-hmm.
other cultures as well, because just like I talked about incense clearly being so widespread that it's a
Right.
cultural exchange many times over,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these stories are too. So a while ago, my friend lent me a book, and it was I'm trying to remember some of the details, but the bottom line is that it was written, or at least parts of it were written in the late 18th century
Okay.
by an official of the state who would go around and essentially collect these stories. The name was Jin Yun. I'm certainly mispronouncing that, and that's already a simplified version of the name.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me. But he was this person that lived until about 1805. I'm sure that's a
Okay, so this
little
is
bit in
still a
debate.
while back. Okay. Yeah.
But he collected a lot of these stories, how accurate they are. A
Just like
lot of people
Shoemaker. Yeah, it's like
But it's again like
yeah.
Shoemaker's Defense of Pennsylvania Mountain
Mm-hmm.
stories. He claimed that these, if they are fabricated, he collected them from people that were telling them. He wasn't
Right.
fabricating them
He wasn't,
himself.
yeah, right.
That was his
Okay.
defense. Take
Okay.
it what you
Well,
will.
that's
But
yeah,
this is a
it's
wild
fair.
story. So he wrote of this kind of well-known person in the, I guess his family was friends with. The bottom line was this man was traveling and he was staying in a house, just like an inn sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in bed and it was dark, but he could tell something was under the bed. And so he figured it would be like a rat or a snake or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else,
Things
but
that go under beds at night. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
something trying to keep warm. And so he's trying to stay calm because obviously you don't want to frighten either one of those things,
Mm-hmm.
especially a snake. And it's slowly moving up. So he figures at some point it's either going to skedaddle or he's
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to grab it and do something, defend himself.
Reasonable.
Yeah, pause for suspense. But he notices in the moonlight that it seems to be growing, and it gets to where it comes up under the sheet, and
Mm.
it's a woman's face,
Yikes.
and she's on top of him, and she's wraps her like really long, slender arms around him,
Mm.
pulling him into her. Okay, right.
I don't like it. Okay.
No, 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 you're not gonna like where it goes. She forces a kiss upon him. Later, he describes that the kiss tasted of dried blood and of rot.
Ugh. Ugh.
But we're not done yet.
Mm.
He passes out at some point. He's dying, and the people in the inn or this house, they go and they seek a physician. They don't know that this is what has happened to the
They
boy.
just, yeah, they just know he's not well. Yeah.
It's very not well. Uh, a physician comes and he checks a few things and he brings out like an antitoxin, an anti-venom,
Hmm.
something against poison. And they work it into his mouth. They, work his throat and have him swallow this. And he comes back to tell the tale. And
Oh,
that's where
wow.
we, right? So
Jeez.
that
Okay.
is the supposedly true story. Obviously,
So, do they identify what, because you said we were talking about these different types of ghosts.
yeah.
Do they identify what type they think it is?
I don't believe they did specifically. I think they talked about it having some sort of energy or being made of this sort of material.
Hmm.
But I do not have the book in front of me now. I
Hmm.
need to find a copy of it.
Because it almost sounds like a vampiric, or like if we're going again, if we're going Western, we would say vampiric. If we're going classical world, we would say like succubus.
I was just about as the
Like
succubus, the incubus.
yeah, or like but I mean also, I mean any like what they call like bedroom invaders, like
Yeah.
any of those kind of things, like old hags, like
Well, I was
sleep
thinking
paralysis,
one of
like
the earliest things we talked about was the
mhm.
hooded figure.
Right,
So that
yeah,
was another one of those
like
bedroom invaders, and we know several people, a couple
mhm,
people who have experienced
mhm.
that themselves.
Whatever that is, yeah. And you got to think too, like again, this gentleman is at an inn, so like it's a liminal space. Who knows who else is around? It's like, yeah, you could set this anywhere and any time. It's a very transferable and kind of timeless story. I wonder from their perspective, whenever he did kind of like come back, I wonder if they knew, like, oh, if someone is dying, maybe it's because of this spirit, and here's what you do to like I wonder how much of that was like medicine versus like I mean they wouldn't have called it a folk remedy, but we'd probably call it that. But like
Well,
something has more of a spiritual element to it,
well,
not
and
just a
I'm wondering
physical
if the
component.
physician thought that too, but
Hmm.
it's my understanding. I'm remembering more of it. I think they were saying that the kiss was like the vampire sort of thing,
Hmm.
feeding off that
Right.
life energy, and
Hmm.
it suggests it's a ghost because again, smelling like
Rot.
decaying and
Yeah.
rotten blood and
Yeah.
right. But this kind of talking about folk remedies, there's other stories in this book that were really good, but it's
Hmm.
interesting some of the things that they do to strike balance because
Yeah.
at the Hungry Ghost festivals, they will have plays and opera type things, and
Right.
they will reserve seating for the ghosts.
Oh,
Those will
that's
stay
cool.
empty,
I
and they're
like that.
very
Yeah.
apparently they're very loud, and there's fireworks because
Okay.
those sounds provide balance, and they're like merriment, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
not. I
I
think
like that.
I read this. I
That
think
sounds,
I think I
yeah.
read this specifically that this idea not only does it
Hmm.
attract, it takes bad things, it softens bad things, and it
Right.
it gives some relief to those who are dead.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What it reminds me of is, I mean, have you ever seen Spirited Away?
No.
Oh God, you should. That's your homework for the week. Seriously, it's so good. So like in Spirited Away, they have all these, different entities in the bathhouse and everything. And there is one that is called No Face. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but that's what everyone calls it, is No Face. But he has like an insatiable hunger and everything. And I wonder if this is like a similar. I wonder if those are related. I know that's Japanese, which is different,
Yeah.
obviously.
Well, and
But
obviously a lot of exchange there.
right, right. So like I wonder if it's similar, if there's any crossover there. That's just what that kind of reminds me of. But I love the idea of people doing things for spirits in the real world. Anytime I see that in any culture, whether it's ancestor worship, whether it's just like offering type stuff, because I really do think that like whether or not you believe in these things, I think the act of remembrance and the act of kind of like just attempting to bring balance to things, that kind of intention,
Yeah.
I think can be like so beneficial to people and communities because at the very least you are doing something that at least makes you feel like you have some sense of control and there's some action you can take even if it is in a way that you can't see or touch or feel. I think those intentions are important no matter what culture they're in.